Welcome to Canine Revolution Radio. Presented by Canine Revolution Dog Training, enhancing the dog and owner relationship through education, balance, and pack instinct.
All right, welcome back. Another episode of Canine Revolution Radio. I'm your host, Chad. I got Chris and Kevin over here goofing off.
What's up?
And today we're going to be talking about puppies, raising your puppy. And we're going to go through quite a bit of information. We're going to be going more into detail on this topic in the future as well, because this is going to be a brief overview of how to raise a puppy when they're coming home to you from a breeder, right? So some of our future podcasts are going to cover before you get the puppy home with some things you're going to look at. But this is going to be primarily talking about after you get your puppy home, what should you be doing to raise this puppy the right way? And we're calling this Raising Your Puppy in the Canine Revolution, if you're going to do it our way.
That's the only way.
Good to go. All right, so as you guys know, if you know me, you know I like terms and definitions.
Yeah, he does.
So
It's a whole Google Drive on it, I'm pretty sure.
that's right. So before we get into a lot of the information, we're going to go through some terms and definitions really briefly so we can have a basic understanding of some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. Why are you shaking your head? You don't like terms and definitions? I'm bringing you your coffee. Oh, thanks.
Thanks, man.
All right, so first term and definition is going to be the word marker. All right? We're going to be using verbal markers to communicate to our dog or our puppy when they are right or wrong. And this communication system allows us to be able to pinpoint to the dog what they're doing right at a moment in time or what they're doing wrong at a moment in time, right? So we're going to be using three primary markers. Number one, the word yes. If we say the word yes, that means that the dog has done the right thing and is released from that behavior, so we don't expect them to hold that behavior any longer. So let's take an example. Let's say we ask our dog to sit. The dog sits. We say yes. They can now get up out of the sit, come over to us, and get a food reward from us. Okay, so that's just one example, all right? But the word yes means that the dog has completed the correct behavior but does not have to continue doing that behavior, right? Second marker, the word good. We call this a duration marker. What this means is that the dog has done the correct behavior, but has to remain in the behavior. So going back to our example about the dog sitting, we ask the dog to sit. The dog sits. We say good. That dog has to maintain that sit, and we deliver a reward to them. Okay? Does that difference make sense? Guys, that difference make sense?
Makes sense.
Good to go.
I'm with you. I'm tracking.
Every day, boys. All right. The third type of accountability, or the third type of marker, is what we call an accountability marker, and this is going to be the word no. This means the dog has done the wrong thing and should actively seek to do the right thing. And the word no can be followed up with a correction once we have appropriately taught that to the dog or the puppy. Okay? Make sense? Good to go. All right. So those are our three markers, yes, good, and no, that enable us to communicate to the dog and pinpoint to them when they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And we can use varying markers at different points in time to build up motivation in the dog, which is what we want, especially in a young puppy. Okay? All right. Next term is going to be classical conditioning. And classical conditioning is basically we have some type of neutral stimuli, and then this is going to precede what we call a reinforcer. After we do this multiple times for repetitions, the internal response in the dog to the stimuli is involuntary. What that means is once we classically condition a dog to a certain behavior, the response from the classical conditioning is not a choice to the dog. It is an involuntary response. It is an unconscious action. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
All right. We mark, let's say, for example, we mark a behavior. We ask the dog to sit. The dog sits. We say good. We follow up with a reward after a certain number of repetitions, depending on the dog. The marker good is going to equal a reward to the dog in their brain. So, like, we don't have to give them food after we say good, right? But they feel like they received food because we've just paired the word good with a food reward so many times, right? And that can be super powerful in training. It allows us to randomize our rewards, which also builds up the behaviors much more stronger than they were before, okay? So classical conditioning, you're going to hear us talk about it a lot. There's a lot of different ways we can use classical conditioning, but that's the basic understanding of it right there, all right? Alrighty. So then the next one is going to be operant conditioning. Okay. And operant conditioning is basically the cause and effect of behavior. Now, this is what a lot of people get confused about. Okay. And we're not going to deep dive into operant conditioning right now. We'll do that in a separate podcast. But people get confused about quadrants of operant conditioning. Basically, there are 4 quadrants to operant conditioning. A good balanced training program is going to use all 4 quadrants, right? But before we talk about the quadrants, first we need to understand the definitions of the words that we use in the quadrants, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to be using the word positive in the quadrants. The word positive does not mean good or bad. It means that we add something to whatever it is we're doing, okay? So think about a situation with a dog as an equation, right? If I say positive in relation to this equation, it means that I'm adding something to that equation, right? On the other side, if I say negative, that means I'm taking something out of the equation, right? So let's say, for example, we got a dog, we got the word sit, and we got a food reward, right? I got a dog and I got the sit. If I'm adding something positive, I might be adding that food reward, right? Negative, I might be removing that food reward from that situation with the dog. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Think our listeners understand so far?
Yeah. I hope so.
Gone over their heads yet? All right. Trying to make it easy. All right. Reinforcement. We're going to be using this word in operant conditioning. And reinforcement means that behavior is more likely to repeat itself or more likely to occur in the future. So if we reinforce a sit behavior, that behavior is more likely to occur in the future, right? Then on the opposite side, punishment. If we use the word punishment in one of these quadrants, that does not mean, hit your dog, right? We definitely don't want to be doing that. It does not mean you're doing anything crazy to your dog. Punishment simply means that a behavior that we're talking about is less likely to repeat itself or less likely to occur in the future, right? Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. So if we punish a sit behavior, that behavior is less likely to repeat itself in the future or less likely to occur in the future, right? That does not mean we're specifically doing some type of action. There's a bunch of different things we could do to make a behavior less likely to occur in the future, right? So don't think about these words any other way other than when we say positive, it means we're adding something to the situation. When we say negative, we are removing something from the situation. When we say reinforcement, we are trying to make that behavior more likely to occur in the future. When we say punishment, we're making that behavior less likely to occur in the future, right? So this is super sciencey, but it's super important to understand. If you don't understand this, right, you're going to have a twisted sense of, what's going on with the dog.
Yeah,
all right.
You have to and I think there's a lot of trainers, even in our area, that don't fully understand this.
Dude, let me tell you, when I first started training, you guys know my story. If you're a listener, you've probably seen my story on one of our socials. I started working for another company in California. When I first got into the training world, they said nothing about operant conditioning.
Yeah.
We did not learn about operant conditioning at that company. This was something I learned from Michael Ellis whenever I started working with him. Okay. But this is, and like whenever you guys started training, this is the first thing we go through.
Yeah.
Day one, let's talk about operant conditioning.
Yeah.
You're going to be talking about it for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, to be a really good trainer, you got to know how to maneuver through these 4 quadrants we're about to talk to very smoothly. Mm-hmm. And it can happen within seconds of each other. You're maneuvering through these quadrants, but super important, right? So the first quadrant, positive reinforcement. This simply means we're adding something in order to make a behavior more likely to occur in the future. So an example, we're going to give a dog a reward for a behavior. And that reward could be food or physical touch, okay? Quadrant number 2, negative reinforcement. Negative means we're removing something. Reinforcement means we're going to make that behavior more likely to occur in the future. So let's say, for example, we want our dog to sit. So we apply a little bit of leash pressure, light leash pressure onto the leash. We ask our dog to sit. The dog sits. We release that leash pressure. So negative, we have released the leash pressure. That's the negative part of the reinforcement. And that makes the behavior of sitting more likely to occur in the future because the dog sat, that got away from the leash pressure. Does that kind of make, is that okay? That makes sense? All right, so that's negative reinforcement. Number 3, the third quadrant is positive punishment. So positive, we're adding something to the equation. Punishment means we're making a behavior less likely to occur. This would be like a traditional leash correction in dog training, just a quick tug and release or snap and release of the leash, right? So for example here, dog is pulling, dog wants to walk ahead of us on the leash. We say no, tug and release on the leash. The dog stops going ahead of us, comes back to us. That would be positive punishment, which means we have punished the behavior of walking ahead of us on the leash. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
All right. And then negative punishment. Negative means we remove something from the situation. Punishment means the behavior is less likely to occur in the future. So negative punishment would be withholding of something the dog wants, right, until a certain behavior is performed. So for example, we want the dog to sit. We have some food in our hand. We put the food in our hand behind our back. So we have removed that from our from the situation. The dog decides to sit. Now we can pull the food out, give it to him. Putting the food behind our back until they sat was negative punishment. Okay. Same thing in bite work when we're talking about bite work, like with Zadino here. You know, he wants to bite that. He wants to play.
Close.
What is it? How do I say it?
Zdeno.
So we got Zdeno, right? He's going on the bite sleeve a couple times. Last session wants to come out, wants to just goof off, not really put
Chest bump you.
Jump 5 feet in the air.
Not really want to put
This is a
full
Great
effort
Dane, by the way.
into. Not really want to put full effort into biting the sleeve. So guess what? The sleeve goes away.
Yep.
Right? The interaction goes away. Negative punishment. Next time we get to do the bite session, now you'll learn to hold on to it. Okay. Yep. So just an example of how we can use it in different forms of training. Okay. All right. So let's go through a couple more definitions here before we get to the meat of our topic. So the next one will be a high value reward, and this is going to be something that creates a high level of motivation in the dog to do work. In most cases, this is going to be a food reward. Okay, so food rewards are going to be a very high level of reward for a lot of dogs. We're going to use this to our advantage, and then we're going to randomize that reward and then not be using that reward that much often, right? But at the beginning of training, it's going to be very important to use a high value reward that the dog is super motivated and interested in order to build up good behaviors, okay? The next one would be engagement, which is just building up sustained focus and motivation on the owner from our dog, right? So we're going to teach that to our dogs. We'll talk more about that in the future. Luring.
Learn.
Kevin?
Learn.
So luring is going to be a physical way to manipulate our dog when we're teaching them new behavior. So the way we do that, we put food in our hand, high value reward goes into our hand. We show our dog's nose, right? The food in our hand, so they start to follow our hand around, follow the food in our hand around. They start to manipulate their body in order to follow the food in our hand with their nose, and then we can manipulate their body and reward them, when they're doing the right thing. So that would be luring, okay? All right, and then another term we need to talk about is fading. So that's going to be the elimination of help in our training. So as we go through training, we're going to be using some luring, some body language, some communication, right? We're going to be using some spatial pressure, all these types of things to help our dog learn different types of behaviors, learn how to move their body. But at a certain point in training, we need to fade out all that help. That's what we call fading, okay? All right. Acquisition-based behavior, this would be something that the dog wants, such as chasing, jumping, pulling, biting, etc. These are self-reinforcing to the dog, meaning if the dog performs these behaviors, they're rewarding themselves. So this is especially important with puppies, but also older dogs as well. If your dog is doing something, right, that you may find annoying, like jumping on you, pulling on the sheets, pulling on the, what do they call those things that hang down from windows? Curtains. Hey, pulling on the curtains, chewing on the door, all those types of things. I don't have curtains, so I don't know. But doing all these types of things can feel good to a dog, right? And you may think they're annoying. You may want them to stop, but they're not going to stop as long as the dog's able to practice them and reinforce themselves.
Why would they stop? They're having a good time.
They're having a good time.
They're doing exactly what they want to do.
Exactly. All right. So then we're also going to be talking about opposition reflex, which is a dog's natural response to being pulled off balance. So this is what happens with all puppies. We put a leash on them. We put a collar on them. We put a harness on them. All of a sudden, they don't know what to do. They start walking. They feel tension pulled onto them through this collar, this leash, this harness. This is called opposition reflex. They feel that tension. Now they want to pull harder away from that tension, right? So what we have to do is we have to extinguish opposition reflex in training and instead of making it something that you pull against, you interpret that as a signal that you move with, which can be challenging, right? It takes a lot of patience, but especially those of you out there with puppies, this is super important to understand, and we're going to talk about it in detail today on the Canine Revolution Radio. All right.
The coffee's kicking in. The coffee's kicking in.
All right. I had to loosen up a little bit. I was going into robot mode, you know. I was going into robot mode at first. All right, overshadowing. If we give the dog two things to pay attention to at the same time, the dog is going to pay attention to one of them that is more relevant to the dog. So, for example, if we give the dog a verbal command and a silent hand signal command at the same time, the physical silent hand signal is going to overshadow your verbal command, which means that the dog's paying more attention to your hand signal because dogs are naturally not verbal creatures, right? So what you need to do in training, you can use that to your advantage to help, but then you're going to fade that help out, make sure your dog's good to go with the verbal input, the verbal command, right? Getting into it, boys. All right.
I might need some coffee, actually.
Arousal. The dog's a level of stimulation and excitement, right? So there's different activities that are going to cause different states of arousal in dogs, right? So we take Georgia outside. We got Chris in a bite suit. Georgia's losing it. She's highly aroused, right? You got food out. Georgia's highly, she's just aroused all the time.
Right now she's aroused because of the potential of food.
But arousal can come from motivation for rewards. Stress for some dogs can create arousal. So, you know, dogs that are getting stressed out, they start moving around. They start getting very active, right? So we're going to need to manipulate arousal during certain training stages and phases, right? And what that means is you may have a dog that's super food motivated. You're trying to use food to train this dog, but actually the food's working against you because it's making your dog too aroused. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Or you see it a lot with maybe like a ball or a tug.
Oh,
you know, like especially with dogs with a lot of drive, working type breeds. They'll do anything for a ball. That might be too much stimulation to start teaching them behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
Bring it down. Yeah.
Yep.
Bring it down. Bring it down a little bit.
All right, so next thing we need to talk about is what we call a competing motivator. This is something also called a distraction. This can be a specific area in training and or an area in life when we are where we are competing for the dog's attention and focus with something in the environment. So that could be a squirrel. You're trying to train in your backyard. This is Frank. You're trying to train in your backyard. Squirrel runs by. Dog's blowing you off. Dog wants to chase a squirrel, right? So you're dealing with a competing motivator, a distraction, which at a certain point in training, you want to eliminate all competing motivators so you can build up your proper behavior, go through your training progression, and then you systematically and strategically add competing motivators, right, to proof them in training, and then you just go crazy. You don't make it strategic or systematic. You just go crazy. There's competing motivators. We're doing our training, right? So different phases of that, okay? So, yeah, we'll talk about that as we go through it. Pack structure. These are the conditions for existing as a pack member, right? So our pack structure here at Canine Revolution is going to consist of obedience work, entry-exit protocol, vehicle protocol, home protocol, kennel protocol, engagement, so on and so forth, right? So we got a lot of things we're going to be working on in a pack structure mentality. Okay?
Rituals.
Routines and rituals. Ring the ding-dong. Good to go. All right.
Bang, bang, bang.
Socialization. Socialization is providing your dog with positive experiences in a variety of environments. It does not mean
Come on.
that your dog we're preaching here.
Come on now.
It does not mean that your dog needs to interact with new people, places, or things.
Let's let him go in the dog park.
No.
Good to go.
Good idea.
Wrong.
Yep. Not a good idea.
Denied.
That's probably the most common one.
So your dog needs to have positive experiences in close proximity to new people, places, and things. And this is going to be an ongoing process throughout the life of your dog, and it's happening at all times, whether or not you're paying attention to it, right? So you need to be aware of your environment. You need to be aware of what may or may not be affecting your dog. So that's all the terms I'm going to go through. I don't want to lose anybody.
For now.
Term.
There's way more terms, but for now.
Hopefully the listeners are still with us after that.
Nah.
After that, you know what I'm saying?
They switched back to Joe Rogan.
You guys got anything to add? so far?
No, all good.
Nothing to add? I'm going to take a sip here.
Authorized.
All right, good to go. All right, so first of all, we are going to touch really quick about picking a puppy. Okay, so we're talking specifically today about puppies. We've gotten through that boring terms and definition stuff. Definology. Terms and
If you say definology, it's terminology and definitions together.
I like that.
So
I like
I like
that,
the word.
actually.
Made up
just
word.
made one.
Yeah.
Put that on a shirt.
All right, so now we're going to Ben, get it on the
Write it
apparel,
down,
man.
Ben. Write it down.
All right, so now we got picking a puppy. Okay, so let's talk about picking a puppy. Whenever you're looking at getting a puppy, you might be going, we've talked about this in the past, to a rescue. You might be going to a breeder. You might be going to a shelter. Who knows where you're going? But whenever you pick out a puppy, it's all about picking out the parents and the parent siblings, right? So if you have access to a puppy's parents and the parent siblings, like at a breeder, for example, and you're trying to figure out what's going to work best for your family and you want to get a good vibe on how your puppy could be, you want to look at the parents. How are the parents? Are they insecure? Are they anxious? Are they aggressive? Are they dominant? You know, these types of things you want to be thinking about. You know, if you got a family, you got young kids, you don't necessarily want a dominant dog in that family, right? If you don't want to spend a lot of time doing extra socialization sessions, you don't necessarily want an insecure dog. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with all these different types of dogs. They're all just different types of personalities and character traits. But depending on what you are looking for your family, what's best for your family, you want to make sure you look at the parents and the parent siblings if possible to get a good understanding of what your puppy could be, right? You guys got anything to add on that?
I mean, I don't know. Stop me if I'm jumping ahead, but be self-aware as well of what your lifestyle is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of people, we see this a lot. You know, I just watched the new Disney Plus movie Togo.
Oh yeah.
With right, and I want a husky. Ooh. Right, I want to get a husky. They're
Game of
so
Thrones did
awesome.
it too, yeah.
Game of Thrones, wolf dog or whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You know, we
wolf
see these
dog.
cool movies. We see police and military people handling German shepherds and Malinois. Like, oh my gosh, those are majestic beasts, and you know nothing about what goes into maintaining those dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to understand what you're getting into as far as the breed and does it match your lifestyle. Are you an active person? If you just want to chill out all day. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be a good recipe, you know. So you need to be self-aware.
Hey, Clyde takes a lot of work.
Yeah, he does.
Clyde takes a lot of work.
Yeah, but you need to be self-aware and know what you're getting into and know what's, pick something suitable for your lifestyle for sure.
Right. And if you don't know what may or may not be suitable for your family, it's probably best that you speak to an expert in the field of dog behavior, which would be
AKA
one of us
Canine
at
Revolution.
Canine Revolution.
Dog trainer.
Feel free to email us or text us or whatever. But that way we can give you an idea of what you might be looking for. You know what I'm saying? But just keep in mind, there are a ton of puppy tests out there. You know, historically, they're not going to be that accurate and tell you how successful your puppy may be at different things. You know what I'm saying? But if we start off on the right foot when we get that puppy, especially if we've chosen a breeder that is going to be doing things with the puppy before they even come home to us, right? We're going to be able to influence a lot of aspects of that puppy. You know what I'm saying? Good to go. All right.
Just go see the monks.
Go
Monks
see-
and New Skeet.
Monks and
There
New
you go.
Skeet.
They got a good program. All right, so next thing we need to talk about is making a plan, right? So I would rather you, instead of taking time, energy, and effort to pick out a puppy test and run through a puppy test, right? I would rather you take that time and resources into making and executing a plan for your puppy. You guys know I'm a planner.
Oh yeah,
Have you seen the calendar?
expert planner.
Remember the lake day last year? The meeting before?
Yeah.
With the boat procedures?
Oh yeah, we had a briefing on Fun Day. Just think about that, guys. Think about that.
SOP and all, whole thing.
Full written standard operating procedure for
It had some pictures in
for a
it,
lake
too.
day. Yeah, for me.
It had some pictures for Chris,
Yeah, I needed
specifically.
those.
All right, but
Wow.
that was funny. You guys have been holding that in for a while. I've never even heard about that before.
Yeah.
All right,
You
so
just never listened.
I just knew. I was already expecting you guys to have that mentality about that. All right.
Hey,
I mean, honestly, I learned a lot.
I needed that though. I needed it.
So it was a good thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do
Good
it
planning
again.
process.
But we're gonna we can.
I
Make
think
fun
we
of
still
it.
have the SOP. We can just probably review it.
We got Lake Day coming up this year too.
Is there? I haven't seen.
There might be a revised SOP
Okay.
because there
Faster
might be
boats,
there
right?
might be some jet skis involved this year.
Oh, my God.
I told Sean I was going to throw him off that tube, and he would not go off last
Chad
year.
was so mad
about that boat.
That pontoon was so slow. He was getting angry. He couldn't throw anybody off the tube.
All right, we're getting off topic. Stay on topic of puppies. All right, so we need to place time, energy, and effort into making and executing a plan for our puppy. So here's some questions to think about. What do you want to do with your puppy? Do you want to do competitive sports? Do you want to do service type work? Do you want to do therapy work? Do you want to do protection work? Do you just want to pet?
You just want to hang.
Yeah.
Just want to hang.
Hang
Want a
out.
couch dog?
Good to go. Like a walrus breed. Kevin?
Something tells me they're not very chill, though.
They're not chill. They look good, though.
Can't wait. It's
French
coming
Bulldogs.
up.
French Bulldogs. People think those are just chilling.
They're ready to go.
Ready to rock and roll. All right. So what do you want to do with your dog? How do you want to live with your dog? How much time do you want to put into training your dog? Right? Because there's going to be certain breeds and dogs that are going to need way more work than others. Right? Whatever your dog is practicing as a puppy, they will practice as an adult. So if you got your puppy, they just came home, they're biting you on the hands. Guess what? As an adult, guess what they're going to be doing? Biting you on the hands.
But harder.
Maybe harder, right? If your puppy is chewing the curtains, right? As a puppy, guess what they're going to be doing when they're older?
Chewing the curtains and the couch and everything else.
So it's nice table, door frame.
If your puppy's screaming in the kennel as a puppy, right? Guess what it's going to be doing when it's older? Screaming in the kennel, right?
And everywhere else.
And everywhere. All right. So the majority of the success of a dog is what happens earlier in its life, especially during what we call their critical development period, right? Which we'll get into. There's not going to be any luck with your puppy. There's only going to be training. Good to go.
That was a solid
Right.
line.
Well, Ben agrees.
Ben, you got something to add?
True.
Agreed.
All right. So some people like to keep a training journal with their goals, their training successes, their lessons learned. If you like that, do that. You know what I'm saying? Whenever I first started training, I definitely was writing down stuff. And then I got to the point where I was like typing notes into my phone. Now I've just been doing it so long where I can keep it mentally compartmentalized. You know what I'm saying? But write it down. Understand what your goals are. Understand what your objectives that day for training are, or that session, or that week. Step by step, baby step it out. Don't rush through it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But only allow your dog or your puppy to practice what you want them to be doing as an adult. You know what I'm saying? All right. So before we get our puppy home, we're going to need some equipment. You guys like equipment?
Oh, yeah.
Training equipment?
Yeah.
You like it? All right. So we're going to need some equipment.
There's also a top 5 equipment podcast.
There is a top 5 equipment podcast.
That Chris.
That
I
was-
think it was more designed too for like getting started into the training too.
Maybe
So that'd be
that
a
was-
good.
that
Maybe
was
we need to go
Chris's
back.
list. That was Chris's list.
It was a good list. It was a really good list.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was a good list. Let's talk real quick about some equipment we might need for a puppy. All right. Number 1, we're going to need a crate or a kennel
It's on the list.
on the list. We recommend either like a wire crate that you can fold up. You know, they have a lot of good plastic crates out there. Here's some examples. You could get 1 kennel, right? Keep it in like your room or a common area, right? You could get 2 kennels. Keep one in a solitary area where you could practice your puppy having some healthy separation. Mm-hmm. Ben, anything to talk about separation anxiety?
The kennel is good for it, yeah.
Right. What about a podcast? Previous podcast?
Do we have a podcast on that?
Yeah, we do. Just,
Drop today.
yeah, drop today, which is
April.
not really time relevant to when
April
you'll be
12th.
listening to this podcast.
But it's there. It's there.
But there is a podcast. on it.
Episode 24.
Yeah. So, all right. So, right, we can use that for some healthy separation. If you have 2 kennels, for example, if you keep one in like the common area, the reason for that is you want the puppy to feel inclusive, to see what's going on with the family, right? But not be able to get into things where you guys can't pay attention to it or manage it. And then in a secluded area, that would be to perform isolation work that makes the puppy comfortable being alone, such as eliminating separation anxiety, right? So those are just 2 ways you could use kennels, okay?
What about like an X-Pen?
Another
Instead
option,
of the,
you're kind of jumping ahead the gun here, but
Oh,
another option
you
could
didn't
be,
give me a script.
another option could be you have a kennel like in your room or a secluded area, then you have like an X-Pen out in your open area, your common area, where the puppy can kind of hang out in the X-Pen, have some toys or whatever in there, some stuff that's okay for them to chew on, right? Instead
Not
of your
curtains.
Instead of your curtains.
You guys can go curtains, man.
Hey,
I don't know why we got on the
Kelly
curtains
likes
now.
her curtains now. Curtains are a big deal at my house.
Curtains are tablecloths to Chad, apparently.
Yeah. Ben needed him to bring some for a podcast, and he tablecloth, and he brought curtains.
They were in the closet.
I was like, yeah, what are we covering the table with? He's like, yeah, I was like, do you have a cover for the table? And he was like, yeah, I got these. I was looking at them. They have like
Good
holes
tablecloth.
in the top of them where you put the hooks through. I'm like, what is this? He's like, curtains.
No, he said tablecloth. I think.
Yeah,
I did
he
think
did.
it was
No,
a
he thought it
tablecloth.
was a tablecloth. I had
Yeah.
to tell him it was curtains.
It kind of looked like a tablecloth. I'll give it to you.
It did look like
Yeah.
a tablecloth. All right. So that's a kennel. All right. Again, we would recommend probably a wire kennel that you can fold up, move around, right? But there's plastic crates out there that'll work as well. All right. So number 2 would be a collar, right? So initially for a puppy, you're probably going to want to use some type of slip lead type leash or collar combo so that as they grow, you can easily adjust that, right? But once they get to a good age where their growing kind of slows down, which is about 15 to 17 weeks old, we're going to move to like what we use, which is a fur saver type collar, okay? So good training collar is essential, all right?
That's also on the top 5 list.
It's also
I
on
was about to
Chris's
say
top
that.
5, okay? Congratulations.
Just making an observation.
Then we're going to need a leash, right? So again, like we talked about, initially we're going to want to use like some type of leash, slip lead type leash collar combo, right? And then as time progresses, we're going to use, we like leather leashes. Was that
We love leather leashes.
you had leather leashes
That's definitely on the list.
specifically on your
Oh,
list?
yeah.
And in the closet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's where we. Yeah, let's not go. Let's not revisit that conversation.
So there are different links to your leather leash you could get. There's different like durabilities. There's a heavy leather leash. There's a light leather leash, right? So for a puppy, you probably want to start with a light one.
What about a retractable?
Retractable could be used for certain things, but not recommended.
Number 1. That should be on the list.
It's on the list to not get the retractable.
I didn't have such disdain for retractable leashes until I came to work here.
But you also got leather leashes that have like hoops on the end for your thumb, or they have just like no hoops. So like the thing about one with no loop on the end could be you allow your puppy to drag that around the house, right? So you can easily grab it. It's not going to snag furniture. Then the one with the loop would be when you're walking, stuff like that. That way you can get the unbreakable grip on your leash.
Maybe they have different lengths too. So like maybe the one on the house, you can get like a little 3-foot one, or a little short one or something.
Short one. Good to go. You can also call that a drag line. Like if you're looking this stuff up, that might be called a drag line, a leash without a loop on the end. And then a leash would be with the one with the loop on the end of it. Okay. We also make homemade drag lines. We get some paracord, 550 cord, burn it, make it whatever length we want, burn the ends, crisp it up, tie a little loop in it. So
We make Chad tie that. He knows all the sailor knots, so we make him tie
and
it.
we connect that to the dog's collar. They can drag that around. It won't catch on anything. It's super lightweight. We can grab it if we need to. Good to go. Mm-hmm. I like the tan 550 cord.
I like the OD
I also
green.
like the OD green too. That's classic.
my favorite.
That's classic.
The other way to make a homemade one which is what I did, is
Your puppy chews it.
leave the leash on your puppy, walk away unattended, they chew it, and they turn it into a drag line.
Now you're good to go.
And then you just start using it as a drag line.
Good to go. Lesson learned. Puppies do like chewing on the leather, don't they?
You can always
right.
keep it short on them, too, so where they can't,
Yeah.
reach it. I mean, they'll probably eventually get it, but if you had like a 1 foot line
Determined.
or something,
Yeah, they can still get it.
Puppies are determined, man.
All right, you're also going to probably want a bait bag or a food pouch so you can hold your food rewards. Was that on your list?
That's on the list.
Congratulations. All right, I bet you this wasn't on your list. You probably want some toys and chews for a puppy.
Nope, not on the list. Not on the list.
So there's going to be, it wasn't on the list, eh?
You said I had to pick 5 things.
I don't even know if you're a real dog trainer.
Listen,
gotta
that
start
top
asking
5 is a good list. Okay.
All right, so for toys and chews, this is important for a puppy. There's going to be a wide variety available. So you want to choose one or some that are more developmentally appropriate for your puppy or dog at different stages of their life. And the reason why this is important is because you want to make a clear distinction between toys that you're using for interaction with you, such as a tug toy, and toys that you allow your puppy to entertain themselves with, right? And you probably don't want more than 3 toys for your puppy at a time, because you want to teach your puppy this is what they can play with, this is what they can chew on, not the curtains. You know what I'm saying? Not the wood, not the baseboards, not the blankets. They chew on the toys, none of this other stuff. Okay?
Yeah, because if you give them like 82 toys, then everything in the house is a toy.
Just drop a basket in the X-Men,
Yeah.
call it a day.
I love the houses I walk into. They got a massive basket of toys. I'm like, holy cow. All right. So let's break this down real quick. Toys for interaction. This would be like tug toys, like your chuck-it balls, bite pillows, things like that. This is going to be really important for like working dog people, right? Then you got toys for self-entertainment, which is a type of toy that your puppy plays with on their own. This could be like a treat dispensing toy where you put your little treats in there. They can flip it over. The treats fall out. They can eat them. Good to go.
Could be a cat.
Could be a cat.
It's like a squeaker.
Yep.
Wait, what?
Then
What?
you got
An actual cat.
Stay on topic. Then you got like chews, which would be like a natural animal part, which could be like a pig ear, a cow trachea. Remember when Bane was a puppy, we gave him cow trachea all the time. He loved it. Could be a beef lung. Could be stuff like that. Cow hooves. They like those.
Let's go to the farm.
Basically,
down the road.
everything that's in a hot dog, I think.
Hot dogs are good. Hot dogs are really good. All right, so that's toys and chews. All right. Then we got cots and beds. You may want a cot. You may want a bed for your dog.
That wasn't
So
on the list.
while you don't want your puppy to get used to chewing on a cot or a bed, you could use them for certain points in training, right? So like Kuranda cots, they're heavy duty. They're great to use, especially with puppies, because the puppy can try to chew it. It's not going to be that satisfying, right? And then you could use like a Primo pad in your kennel, which is a great beginner crate bed because they're pretty difficult to get into, okay? Anything else on cots and beds?
My Primo pads just came in. Good to go.
Perfect. All right, the Primo pad's like a really soft
Mat. Like a cushion mat.
yeah, like a cushion mat, like memory foam inside vinyl. Good to go.
Is that what it does?
Yeah, Wally's living it up now, boys.
Wally's got the good life.
All right, then we got food. Ooh, this is a big one. All right, so we got to make a clear distinction, especially when we're training a puppy, between training food and mealtime food, right? So training food is going to be food that you're training with and engaging with your puppy. This has to be soft, has to be easy to eat, has to be easy to use, has to stay together. I've tried some before where it like falls apart in your hand. You're like, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? So for us, we're using a lot of Happy Howie meat rolls, beef flavor, good to go. Cut that into a 1/2-inch piece, good to go. Or we could use hot dogs, good to go. Nice and oily, smell good.
Even better.
I'm on a hot dog kick.
Yeah.
You can eat some too. Take a
I
couple
do.
out of your pouch, have it yourself, good to go. And then you got mealtime food. That is what you're going to be feeding your puppy at meal times. So this, refer to our, you know what? Just refer to the podcast we did with Blair about food for your dog. Okay. So check that out. All right. And then other specific things you might need are going to just be specific to your goal with your puppy. So that could be touch pads. It could be foot targets. It could be hurdles. It could be jumps, agility equipment, protection stuff, remote collars, long lines, retrieval equipment, sport competition tools, etc. Right? So whatever you're getting, just make sure it's developmentally appropriate for your puppy as you progress. Don't be having your young puppy do these crazy jumps that are going to hurt its joints.
Yeah.
You know
I mean,
what
I
I'm
would say a lot of people get excited, and it's understandable, but slow your roll a little bit.
slow roll.
Let's focus on the basics before we get
Ease
too
into
crazy.
Ease into
That's
it.
right.
Have a good
You
time.
gotta work your way to it. You gotta peel it back.
Peel back
Like an onion.
something,
Peel
like
back
an
the
onion.
later. Good to go.
Yeah. Always got to mention the onion.
All right, so let's get into the next section. We're done with equipment. Let's talk about compartmentalization. This is super important. I talk about it all the time with people I'm working with, especially those that are going to get a puppy, in addition to the dog that we're working with at the time. And this is really important for high drive dogs, dogs that got tons of energy. They're ready to go all the time. What I recommend is that you have a low arousal area. Refer back to our discussion on terms and definitions, what I call it, definology. Definology, right? So arousal, we talked about that. So have a low arousal area and a high arousal area in your life. So what I recommend, in your house, low arousal. So what that means is you don't play fetch in your house.
Can you imagine? It's a Dano. Go get it.
Yeah. Don't play tug in your house. Don't get all amped up, jacked up in your house, right?
But it's so tempting.
It's so tempting, but don't do it, right? Because if you do that, guess what? Your dog's practicing it, your puppy's practicing it, then all of a sudden in the house they can be crazy, right? So what I recommend is in your house, low arousal, you remain calm, good to go, right? outside or in a training area,
Go
high
crazy.
arousal. That means you can play, get crazy, get amped up, good to go, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Questions? Comments?
Good.
Good to go? All right. Okay, so we've gone through equipment, we've gone through definitionology, we've gone through a compartmentalization. Now let's talk about, we've already talked about picking out a puppy, looking at the parents. Let's talk about bringing a puppy into a house with multiple dogs in there already, right? So this happens to a lot of people. You got older dogs, you're ready to bring a puppy into the house. You're like, let me just bring it in. It's all going to be good.
The dogs
right?
will teach them what to do. The older dogs will teach them.
Honestly,
yeah.
the amount of times that actually works out surprises me.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes sometimes that happens, but most of the
Don't
time,
do it.
ain't gonna be a good idea.
Just open the door. All right, see you.
So in a perfect
luck.
world, this introduction between your older dogs and your puppy should always be away from your house, outside of your territory, because you don't want your older dogs to get all amped up and dominant, you know what I'm saying, with the new puppy entering the territory, okay? And then the other thing I would recommend is that you not allow, and this may seem counterintuitive, but hear me out here, don't allow your dogs and puppy to initially meet and make physical contact at first glance. You know what I'm saying?
What?
Yep. So let's talk through this real quick. You know, if there's two people available, what I would recommend is take out the puppy and someone bring out the older dog or dogs and walk them in vicinity of each other, but not making direct contact. So like, let's say, for example, I have either my family or friend bring my older dog out. I have the puppy. We're going to take a walk down the street. Good to go, right? They can be close, they can see each other, smell each other, but we're not going to let them to make direct contact. At a certain point in that walk, we may feel comfortable that their initial energy levels have come down. They're familiarized with each other. So at this point, we are ready to allow direct contact, right? So then we're going to let them meet. We're going to observe the body language. If everything seems good and playful, we may continue physical contact. If the older dog is seeming stiff, raising the hackles, etc., we would stop contact, and we're going to let the puppy stay out of the older dog's space for now, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe our puppy seems stiff, raising hackles, very unsure of the older dog. We're probably going to separate them and keep the older dog out of the puppy's area for now, right? Just because the puppy's getting overwhelmed. If we allow them to interact when we get back home because everything's looking good, we're always going to be observing them. We don't want the puppy to pester the older dog, right? Which happens a lot. The puppy wants this, they want that, they want to pest the older dog. The older dog's wanting to chill out, so then the older dog decides to correct the puppy. We don't really want that happening, right? So we want to develop a relationship with the puppy where the puppy is allowed to interact with the older dog, not too much, not too little, right? What we don't want is the puppy to interact too much.
Overdo it.
Yeah, we don't want to overdo it with the older dog because we don't want that puppy and older dog to become more strongly bonded than us and the puppy, right? Because then that puppy's going to view the older dog as a pack leader, not us, right? So if you do have an older dog with some behaviors that you don't want the puppy to have, you definitely need to watch their interactions because a puppy can learn from that older dog.
Then you got two dogs chewing on the curtains.
You got two dogs chewing on the curtains. Good to go.
just get rid of the curtains. It's gone.
Just get rid of the curtains. Good to go. Or if your older dog, for example, likes to jump on people when people come over, your new puppy is going to be doing that too.
Oh, so that's what we do around here. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you guys have any comments on that? Things to add in about interacting or first interactions?
Yeah, I mean, think about like putting in a fish in a fish tank. You don't just bloop it in there, you know.
Bloop.
I thought that's what you did.
Bloop.
Bloop.
What
Good
are you
to go.
supposed to do?
You got to put it in a bag.
Yeah.
Separate in a bag. You allow it to rest in the top of the tank. All the other fish get to know them. The water regulates to the correct temperature, and then later on you can release them in there.
Have you had fish before?
Oh my
yeah.
God, I did
Are you a
not
fish
know
trainer?
that.
But last time I did it,
You knew
one
that?
got
I
eaten.
did not know that.
Yeah. He lasted like a day.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, it's a tough world.
Wait. Can you train my fish?
I mean, you don't really need to
fish.
train them. You don't really need.
Well,
to.
tell me-
Follow the Happy Howie, you know.
I put my beta fish in with a bunch of my goldfish. And
Oh, no.
what happened? No, I'm just kidding. That didn't happen.
It's like a street fight.
I won't tell you what we used to do with beta
I
fish.
used to have a beta fish, actually. I used to have one. Rainbow.
All right, back
Rainbow.
on topic, boys. Back on topic.
So kennel for management. You know, if you can't directly supervise them, utilize your kennel so that way they're not having any bad experiences together, while you're going through this phase.
Yeah. So. Management is key. I mean, don't assume just because your initial interaction goes well that they're good to go.
Right. Good point.
House.
Good
you know
point.
what I mean?
There's going to be things like don't have things lingering around in the environment.
Yeah.
Feed them in their kennels. So there's not that competing motivator. Don't have toys just laying around.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say ever, but obviously during this period, it's extremely important. You need that positive experience. So
yeah. And so, like we already talked about with the kennels, like that'd be a great way. You got your X pen or your kennel in the main area. Your puppy can view everything that's going on, including your older dog wandering around or doing what it does. You know what I'm saying? Without constantly pestering your older dog. You know what I'm saying? So, but all right. Good to go with that. Let's go ahead and get into the topic of crate games. How to make our puppies comfortable with the kennel.
Almost jumped the gun.
You did jump it a little bit. We'll get into it here in a second.
I jumped it a couple times.
But, when we first get our puppy home, they may or may not be used to a kennel. You may have a breeder that was really good, had a kennel just in one of the play areas for the puppies where they could go in and out of and just get used to it being there, right? But for us, when we first get it home, we want to make the kennel a fun and enjoyable experience, right? A fun place. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use high-value food rewards to get the puppy to go in and out of the kennel and to get them to used to the door opening and closing. So typically what we're going to do, we got our kennel set up. Ideally, before the puppy even comes home, we got our kennel set up, right? Take our puppy on our slip lead over to our kennel, show it some food reward in front of its face, toss that into the kennel, let the puppy chase that into the kennel, eat it, then ask them to come back out. Hey, come here, puppy. Whatever the puppy's name is,
Leave the cat calling to him. He's got it.
Puppy comes out. Puppy comes out. We feed him again. We toss another piece of food in. So in and out, in and out, in and out, right? Then we toss a couple pieces of food into the kennel. The puppy goes inside there. We close the door. We don't latch it. We just hold the door closed. Puppy eats all the food that's in there. Puppy's looking around. They're comfortable. We open the door, let the puppy come out. So we're going to do that repetitiously, going in, coming out, going in, coming out, going in, closing the door for a short period of time, coming back out, in, out, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing for kennel games over several sessions, repetitiously, helping that puppy to be comfortable in there. And then we're also going to be feeding the puppy in the kennel their mealtime food so they're comfortable in there as well. Also getting water in the kennel so you enjoy it for water as well. And whenever we're done with physical exercise, like a short walk, have them go into their kennel as a resting place. So all these types of things are going to make that kennel a fun and rewarding place to be at, something we're comfortable being in, and it's also going to build that lair mentality for the kennel, right? Other things we should be thinking about for kennel games?
I think we covered it.
Good to go.
Good.
All right. We are going to talk about your puppy making noise in the kennel because that's going to happen, right? We'll talk about that.
Is it, Ben? Is that true?
Yeah, I mean,
here we go.
There's a couple days where you got to bite the bullet, but after that, good to go.
Yeah.
If you follow the procedures.
Follow the procedures.
The routines and rituals.
Routines and rituals.
Crying baby syndrome.
It works.
All right, so let's talk about management. This is huge. There's a lot of things we're going to cover in management.
I need you to center your mic a little because you're talking to the side like this. There you go.
You're pulling a Chris.
What's your deal?
You're pulling a Chris
right
right.
What's your deal?
You can hold it if you want to. Y'all wanted the arms.
All right, management. This is going to be a big deal with your puppy, with your dog, with everything you're doing, right? And management is all the things we do with our dog day in and day out as we live with them. It's how we institute manners. It's how we solve behavioral problems, things like that, without impacting the puppy's motivation and drive, right? So we always want to preserve that motivation and drive. Unfortunately, there's a lot of training methods and management strategies out there that don't take into account the dog's motivation and drive. There's many types of suppressive techniques used to make dogs polite, and pressure does have an impact on motivation, right? So as we're getting our puppy, we want to manage the puppy. We want to mold it how we want, right, it to develop and continue to maintain that motivation and drive, especially as it gets older, okay? You have something you want to say, Kevin?
Just move my mic.
Okay.
You took a breath in, like
You were like
you were
ready to
gonna.
go?
I got some thoughts going on.
Hey, let's not be. You got some thoughts you want to talk about?
No.
They're not ready yet. They're not.
Yeah,
Ready.
they're still cooking.
When they're ready, they'll come out.
I'll just blurt.
Let's be real though. It is a challenge to raise a polite dog.
Ben, agreed.
Yeah, it took me about 2 years.
It is a challenge to raise a polite dog. It is a process, but with proper relationship, proper engagement, proper management, we can mold that mind and develop what we need to develop, right? What we want to do is redirect the dog off of or away from any of the things we don't want them to do. So especially with a young puppy, we just don't want to yank them around, drag them around like you may see some people doing. We want to try and redirect that dog off of whatever it is or away from that, because remember, we're trying to maintain and build upon that dog's motivation and drive level while preserving a relationship, right? Dogs that perform or rehearse random behaviors aren't bad, but consistent behaviors can turn into unwanted behaviors. So let's say your dog just randomly one day chews on a curtain. Since we're talking about curtains today, I don't know where that came from.
You brought it up.
I did?
Yeah.
Y'all keep bringing it
I need to
up.
make some Canine Revolution curtains.
Ooh, Ben, write it down.
We'll put it in the apparel line.
So let's just say that dogs, let's say we have a puppy randomly chews on a curtain, right? But doesn't do it consistently, right? That's not necessarily a bad thing other than the curtains that are chewed up, right? But we just don't want that to be a consistent behavior, because a consistent behavior is going to become a habit, no doubt about it.
Going through curtains around here like crazy.
A lot of curtains. So first, let's talk about some key aspects of management. And remember that management covers a wide variety of topics. We just want to cover some key aspects of it today. So the first one we're going to talk about is using a kennel. So a kennel is going to help us keep our dog out of trouble while we're teaching them what to do and what not to do and how to behave, right? So what we don't want is we don't want our dog to learn bad habits in the kennel. How many dogs have we trained? They eat the kennel tray. They rip apart the kennel by pulling the wires and, just ripping out of it. You know what I'm
Shaking
saying?
it like Hannibal Lecter in there.
That's because, why that stuff happens is because kennel games are never played. Kennel training was never completed. And that dog's just got a ton of bad habits. They're used to getting what they want when they want it, right? So we don't want our dog to learn bad habits in the kennel. So when they're in the kennel, again, we want to play those kennel games we already talked about to make it a comfortable place. We want to give the puppy acceptable chew items in the kennel, right? Like toys, cow tracheas, hooves, bully
Not
sticks.
curtains.
Not curtains.
There you go.
Yep. And then if our puppy's in the kennel, they're being well behaved, and all of a sudden they come outside the kennel and they're trying to chew something that's outside the kennel. Now we need to redirect their attention to something that's acceptable to chew on outside the kennel. Does that kind of make sense? So like the other thing too is making noise in the kennel, right? If our puppy's making noise in the kennel, guess what? They stay in the kennel and we ignore them to the best of our ability. That can be hard sometimes, Ben.
Well, just my experience with my puppy, she's going to be turning 2 in like a month. But whenever I first got her, for like the first 3 nights, she was like crying nonstop in the kennel, especially overnight.
Ben was calling me.
There's a couple sleepless nights, which I can deal with, but I do have a roommate, and he did not want to deal with that, but he was kind enough to understand. But the whining for sure is going to happen. Or maybe when they're frustrated, you got them in the kennel, they don't want to be in there,
Yeah.
That's when those toys, like Chad said, really do come in handy. Because, I'm not speaking from experience, but let's say, hypothetically, you leave your pit bull puppy who's about to be 2 this upcoming month in the kennel without a toy in there, they maybe chew up your tray.
Yeah.
Okay, that happened to me.
That happened to Ben.
You also don't want them to become dependent on the toys. That's the key.
Yeah.
It's
all a balance.
But for a puppy, so let's just take a step back for a second. Your puppy's leaving its litter, right? We're talking about a dog coming from a breeder. It's leaving the litter. It's used to being with its litter mates. It's used to sleeping with them. All of a sudden, it's at your house. It's by itself. It's in this kennel. So it's going to be making some noise, right? So we do understand that. That's why I say, when you first put your puppy, well, first of all, we want to play those kennel games before it's time for it to stay in the kennel for a longer period of time. But whenever you first do that, it is going to make noise. It's going to bark. It's going to scream. It's going to whine. It's going to be annoying. You know what I'm saying? So you're just going to have to ignore that and teach that puppy that that's not going to get it out of the kennel, because if you take it out of its kennel, as soon as it starts whining and screaming,
Done.
Boom, you are already owned.
For life.
You know what I'm
It's
saying?
over with.
You're going to be fighting that the rest of your life, right? So remember, what they practice is what they're going to do in the future. So whenever they set, like let's say you put them in the kennel and they are making noise, then all of a sudden they get quiet for a few seconds. You can say, good, go take them out. Now that they're quiet, take them out to go potty, take them back in, back to the kennel, something like that. You know what I'm saying? So you really need to be mindful about this noise making in the kennel. Be patient, ignore it. You know what I'm saying? As time goes on, that'll settle down and stop. You know what I'm saying? If you follow it properly.
Yeah, it's going to get frustrating just from my personal experience because it's so fresh. But, like, definitely patience is, like, something you should constantly remind yourself about, and that it's not going to last for forever, like the whining in the kennel.
As long as you
right. Stick it out. If you're taking the dog out whenever it's crying, you're not helping yourself at all. But if you're being very... Yeah, if you're being, like, very strict with the kennel protocol and the dog's whining all the time and stuff... Just tell yourself only a couple days, only a short period of time.
Sleep outside.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah, do what you got to do. If you got to put your dog in another room, close the door, because it's whining. Do that,
Build a soundproof room in your house.
Yeah.
Easy.
Build a bunker.
Easy day.
Build a doomsday bunker,
Sunday
then put
afternoon.
your dog in it.
Yeah.
Yep. It'd only be a couple mil.
I can't believe she's going to be 2. Wow.
All right, so that's what we're talking about as far as management in a kennel. Are there anything else that you guys think we should add in there about a kennel? We talked about,
do you want to talk about dividers?
Dividers are critical. We're going to talk about those for housebreaking here in a second. You know what I'm saying? But is there
don't throw those little walls away.
Yeah,
that comes with
throw
your
the
kennel.
divider away.
Yeah.
Anything else about like getting used to a kennel, noise in the kennel type stuff? No. Just remember, whatever you allow your puppy to practice is what they're going to do as they get older, right? All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about management-wise is housebreaking or potty training. Again, we got a podcast, episode 2, on potty training, which you can refer to as well for a deep dive into this topic, but we're going to cover it really quickly as far as it pertains to puppies. And what it comes down to is that housebreaking or potty training is about schedule and structure, right? What is your schedule for the puppy? What is the way you're structuring your day in, day out routine, right? So we are going to be using a kennel as a component of housebreaking. It's very important, right? You also need to make a routine within your structure, routine and ritual.
Routines and ritual.
There we go. There it is. Cue it as a way to build up expectation for the proper potty behaviors, right? So one thing we do, every time you take the dog out of the kennel, you're going to take it right outside to your potty area. This is going to create the habit that you're not pottying inside, you're only pottying outside. Let me pause right there real quick. I got a question in the gym the other day. Someone asked me a question. They got this puppy. They're trying to potty train it. Guess what they got?
Dobie.
Nope.
Doodle.
Nope. Not type of dog.
French bulldog.
Well, I mean, that was
French
vague.
bulldog.
Not a French bulldog. Guess what they got? Guess what they got to help with the potty training?
Oh,
Pads.
pads.
Pee
Yeah,
pads.
Pee pads.
In the house.
Fake
Those
grass.
those are great. Yeah.
Yeah, for peeing on
Yeah.
So,
in your house.
so these people, good friends of mine, work out together. But they got a puppy. They're using pee pads in the kennel and in the house. So what are you doing? You're actually allowing your puppy to practice peeing in the kennel and in the house.
Building a routine and
You're
ritual.
building a routine and a ritual and a habit of peeing in the kennel and in the house. So don't even go down that road. Don't get pee pads. Don't use them. You only potty outside. If you ever allow your puppy to potty inside on newspaper or pee pads or whatever, you're already building and establishing a bad habit.
We're going to get sued by the creator of the pee pads.
So my
Pee pads, if you want to sponsor us,
yeah.
we're here.
my grandmother used pee pads for her puppy Chihuahua, and then years later, when she passed away, my parents took over and they had to start potty training from fresh.
Oh, yeah.
Because she had basically what it evolved to was one of the spare bedrooms was her pee pad. So now she just peed in the bedroom for years.
Shoot.
That carpet had to be ripped up, redone, and everything. I mean,
Did your grandma know about it?
oh yeah.
And she was fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like that was
Is
just
what
the
it
way.
is.
That's how you do it. It is what it is.
Is what it is.
You know.
Did they listen
You
to
got to use
episode 2?
carpet for something.
We didn't have episode 2 then. At that point. We didn't have a podcast at that time. But
Were you even working for us?
oh yeah.
All right, so talked about how we're going to be using a kennel to help with potty training to build that structure, right? We're not going to be using pee pads, right?
Nope.
You also want to allow potty breaks and relief of the bladder and the intestines before any type of training or play. So you come outside the kennel, you go to the potty area, then you go to your training or your play session, right? Never, ever in the house leave your puppy unattended. That's a good way for a puppy to get in trouble, especially when it comes to potty training. They're sniffing around. Ooh, this smells good. Let me pee on it.
Mm-hmm. Then you don't find it for days.
You don't find it for days. You're pissed off.
Something smells weird.
So always supervise your puppy, and we're going to talk about how we do that, okay? So anytime our puppy comes outside the kennel or the X-Pen, we're going to have a leash on them or that slip lead, and they're going to be right with us, right? They're going to be following us around. We're going to have that in hand. What I've done in the past is I've had a longer one. I tied it off to my belt, and if I was moving, that puppy was moving with me. You know what I'm saying? That way you can keep an eye on your puppy, and if they need to go potty, you can take them out to the potty area. So even though you took them out of their kennel, guess what? You took them straight out to your potty area. Now let's say you're coming back inside to hang out for a little bit. You tied this leash off to your belt. You're cooking dinner, or you're doing some laptop work or watching TV. You're watching your puppy out of the corner of your eye. You notice they're sniffing something hardcore. They may be trying to squat. You know they're trying to give you signal of going potty, so you simply just walk outside before they do it.
Or maybe run out.
Take them out to their potty area. Say, go potty, good. Take them out there. Say, good. Reward them when they're doing the right thing. Good to go, right? So this is why you want to keep an eye on your puppy, because if they're even accidentally, you're not paying attention to them, they're going poop or pee inside the house, you're still going down the wrong road. You know what I'm saying?
They're forming a habit. You don't even know it. It's happening behind your back.
It's happening right there. You know what I'm saying? Also, this is going to help you with like the chewing problem that a lot of people have, because you're keeping an eye on your puppy. If you ever notice them chewing anything, you can move them away from that, redirect them with your leash. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of 2-for-1 deal. Mm-hmm. You're able to supervise the potty aspects of training. You're also able to supervise the chewing stuff that could be going on. Okay? And then you want to get your puppy on a potty schedule as soon as possible. So I would say it depends on the age of your dog, right? But every couple of hours, you want to be getting your puppy outside for a routine potty break, right? Before bed, what I recommend, taking the puppy on a long walk, maybe 20 minutes, just to work everything out of their system. It depends on the age of the puppy, you know what I'm saying? But take them on a walk. That way they're pumping out their system. Stop water intake about an hour before bedtime, and then slowly work on building up their duration for how long they can hold their potty, right? Do you have something you want to say? You pulled your mic close to you.
No, I'm just preparing for when I do have something to say.
Good to go.
Good to go. All right. So again, at first, take your puppy out every couple hours if possible. Give them plenty of potty breaks. Before bed, take them on a short walk, 20 minutes or so. Let them get everything out of their system. Stop water intake about an hour prior to bedtime. Slowly work on building up their duration in a kennel, holding their potty. Understand, a young puppy is going to have to go out at nighttime. So I would say when you got your young puppy, plan on getting up at least 1 to 2 times per night to let your puppy out. Good to go?
And it's going to suck.
Go ahead and plan on that. It sucks. Go ahead and plan on it.
But that's the whole thing about dog ownership. I feel like people get dogs. They're like, oh, I'm just going to let it, be in my house and it's going to be good.
Right.
No, it takes a lot.
What do you think? This is magic?
Yeah.
Well, I've had this type of dog my whole life.
You know what's going to suck more, though? You don't take your
Not a
puppy
control
out.
dog.
Yeah.
Carpet
out of
costs.
control.
Curtain costs.
But as far as potty training goes, you don't take your puppy out overnight. It poops and pees on itself. Now it's stinky. Now it needs a bath. Now it's covered in poop. Now you got to clean the kennel.
You got all
That's a
sorts
good
of
time.
problems.
That's a
If it
good
happens a
time.
couple times,
Then you
it
wash
could
your
become-
dog.
Then you wash your dog. Then it does it again.
You wash your dog in the bathtub.
never-ending
then,
cycle.
Then your drain gets clogged from dog hair. Then you got to get Drano. Then you got to Drano your bathtub. Then your dog does it again the next night.
I mean, I have to do that
Repeat and
anyway for beard.
Wait,
hair.
this is just me raising my puppy.
All right. So the other thing you can do is use a divider in the kennel so there's not excess room in the kennel. So the puppy should be able to stand up, turn around, lay down comfortably. But other than that, divide out the rest of the kennel. You can use that as they get older, but you don't want excessive room, because if there is excessive room, they're more likely to go to the bathroom in the kennel.
So you don't need the big Taj Mahal double-decker kennel for the little toy Yorkies.
Well, yeah, not for the toy Yorkie.
Okay.
If you got a Great Dane puppy, maybe you get the big one, you divide it down to the puppy size and slowly expand. But the toy Yorkie, I can use the smallest kennel they got.
But that's just not too tiny.
Not too tiny.
That's what I hear a lot.
Definitely going to need a big one for the Great Dane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was that one, 54-inch?
The one I ordered?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be picking up tomorrow because right now he's in the 48.
Okay.
He's like hunkered down. He's standing.
Get the big one, boys. All right. So we talked about potty training. All right. Let's talk about isolation, which is going to be healthy separation, right? So teaching the puppy how to be by itself and deal with that, right? Your puppy needs to have alone time every day so it doesn't have a problem being alone by itself. Because the puppies or dogs that are always with the owner, they can develop unhealthy obsessions with never being alone, right? Especially with COVID stuff going on. A lot of people are working from home. It's very easy to have your dog with you 100% of the time, never having to be alone. And then you need to be away from your dog for whatever reason, and it freaks out, right?
I think just getting a puppy alone is the temptations there. When everybody gets a new puppy, they want to be with their puppy all the time.
Right.
And they want to hold it all the time.
Hold it all
right.
the time.
Yeah.
Yep. So like developing unhealthy obsession with not being alone, that can lead to frustration, destruction, stress, separation anxiety, which we just covered in a recent podcast. So all these types of things. So healthy separation, like we already talked about with the kennel. If you got a 2 kennel setup, you keep one in like a isolated area or an area that's not that busy of your home. Put your puppy in there for short periods of time throughout the day, just so they learn to be by themselves for a little bit. And you can put chew toys in there, toys, whatever, chew items, you know what I'm saying? But the puppy needs to be by itself without social contact, right? If you're using an X-Pen kennel, that would be the kennel that's away from the common area, and, go from there. Just slowly build up that healthy separation. As your puppy develops and gets older and you're doing different things training-wise, healthy separation could be like a spot or a downstay in a different room, things like that, okay? But that's got to happen. If you don't get that down when they're a puppy, you're gonna be fighting that and struggling with that as time goes on, right? Do you guys have anything to add? No, good to go?
Got the Bible over.
All right, so let's talk about motivation. So if your puppy is doing whatever it wants to do all the time, it's not going to understand why it needs to listen to you.
I want to say that one more time.
Fact. Yeah, repeat that. Repeat that.
If your puppy is out doing whatever it wants to do all the time, it's not going to listen. It's not going to understand or reason why it needs to listen to you.
Why should it? Why should it?
Why should I get everything I want?
Everything I want.
Yep. So what we want is we like a dog that likes working with us and working for us, right? We want to control what we want them to do. We want to control what they get excited about and get into, right? So again, using the kennel is going to help you do this. Using the X-Pen at certain points in time is going to help you do this. Using your healthy separation techniques is going to help you do this instead of just allowing your puppy to free roam all the time, right? So this is critical. Make sure you're controlling and structuring the day as you go through it with your puppy, okay? All right, then leash reactivity. Right, we already talked about opposition reflex a little bit. Leash pulling is going to be a naturally reinforcing thing that your dog does due to that opposition reflex, and we do not want our dogs to practice this at all. So what we're going to be doing is using food to manage and teach leash reactivity with puppies. So let's go ahead and talk about that, okay? What we're going to be doing, we're going to go out to our training session, our training area. We're going to have our food rewards with us in our bait bag that we talked about in our equipment section today, right? We got our slip lead on our puppy. We let them go potty, like we already talked about. We always allow our puppy to relieve themselves before we start training or play, right? So we allow them to go potty. Now we're ready to start working on leash reactivity. What we do, puppy's hanging out. We apply light tension into the leash approximately at the dog's shoulder level, which means you're going to have to bend over, right?
So if you got that toy Yorkie,
you're going to be bending way over, right?
Little John, get low.
Get low. Hey, music video. Round
There
two.
we go. with a couple of Yorkies.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah, write it down.
Write that down. Little dogs only. Oh, stand by for that music video.
Any listener that just caught that is, they got a little teaser on the future. All right, so
We'll have it ready in about a year.
probably 2. So all right, so we got our puppy, we got our equipment. We're applying light leash tension at the dog's shoulder level, could be any direction, and the puppy's going to resist it. So let's just say we're pulling it away from their chest, right? The puppy's going to resist it, try to back up. Then all of a sudden they may take 1 step forward, which means they give in to that pressure. We immediately say yes, and then have the puppy chase our hand with food in it. Good to go, right? So that puppy's learning that if I resist this, nothing happens. If I give in to this pressure, I get a piece of food, right? So then you're going to repeat that. Apply light tension at the dog's shoulder level. Puppy gives in to that at some point. You say yes, let them chase your hand with food. Remember, movement is motivating. So if your dog gets to chase your hand with the food in it, that's instigating some prey drive, which is more motivating than just shoving food into their nose, right? So you do this repeatedly. You do it from different angles on their neck with the slip lead. So sometimes you pull towards the back. Sometimes you pull towards the side. Anytime they give into that pressure and move with the leash instead of away from it, you immediately say yes, give them a food reward. Boom, good to go. Practice, 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 repetition, repetition, repetition. This doesn't happen in one session. It doesn't happen in one day. It's going to take repetitions. It's going to take practice, multiple training sessions. But if you get it down, your dog's going to understand that any pressure on the leash equals a directional input, and they should move with that. Yep. Good to go. That's how we do it.
This is your personal dog, so
take your time. Take your time.
There's no reason to rush.
There's no rush.
Get everything nice and sharp and perfect. You
nice
got
and
long life ahead of you with this dog. So you might as well take the time with it.
Take the time with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like, "Hey, we gotta walk. We gotta do walks and walks and walks." I think you're gonna be, especially in those beginning phases, you're gonna be more productive doing these types of sessions than doing these long distance walks.
This is more important than a walk because you can't have a good walk if you got a crazy leash puller, because guess what you're doing?
Reinforcing.
You're reinforcing leash pulling.
Bingo.
If you're walking with a leash puller.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You told them.
All right, if you guys have a question on that, let us know, because this is super important.
Yeah.
And this technique, it does work. This is the best technique when it comes to leash pulling. I'm telling you, I've done through my time of learning how to train, I've been through so many people that do it different ways. This is the best way. This is going to maintain the motivation and drive of your dog. Okay? Anything else to add?
Good.
That was good.
That was real good.
That was real good. All right. So let's talk about redirection. So we're going to break up dog behavior into 2 basic categories. Category number 1, we got a self-reinforcing behavior. This is a behavior that has value in and of itself due to the chemical release in the dog's brain. The dog is addicted to these behaviors and these feelings and will do these behaviors for their own sake. Jumping, digging, barking, chewing, aggression. These types of behaviors do not need to be rewarded by us for the dog to maintain them, because the dog's brain is getting dopamine dropped into the brain by performing these behaviors.
Dopamine's powerful.
I love dopamine.
I love it.
All right. Second type of behavior.
Need some more, honestly.
Second type of behavior category is going to be an operant behavior. This is a behavior that has value based on the consequence, which could be a good consequence or a bad consequence. And remember, we talked about operant conditioning earlier in our definology section. Mm-hmm. We talked about positive reinforcement.
I really do.
We're coming up with a lot of stuff today.
Yeah, we're talking about that definology section. We talked about operant conditioning with the 4 quadrants: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment. Good to go, right? So that's going to be like an operant style behavior.
I think like termination's better.
That's a good one.
Termination.
Interchangeable.
Sounds kind of like Terminator.
Ooh. Stay focused. Stay focused.
I'm thinking about the music video right now, honestly.
All right, so we do want to be preemptive in the undesirable self-reinforcing behaviors and not allow our puppies to practice them. Remember, if you got your puppy in the backyard, you're not paying attention to it. It's digging holes. Guess what it's going to do the rest of its life until you stop it? It's going to be digging holes.
Because it's getting that dopamine high right there.
It's getting high on dopamine. If it's jumping on your neighbors, Guess what it's going to do the rest of its life? Jump on your neighbors.
Jump on your neighbors.
You know what I'm saying?
And your kids.
And your kids.
And your grandparents.
And and the mailman.
And the mailman.
So just remember to redirect your puppy into an activity or behavior you want them to practice and perform in the future. So let's say, for example, your neighbor's coming over to say, hey, your puppy's used to jumping up on them, or maybe you beat the curve and you don't even allow that from the get-go. Give your neighbor a hot piece of hot dog. Have your neighbor lure your puppy into a sit for the greeting. Give them the hot dog, pet the puppy while they're sitting. Good to go.
Boom.
That's one way to do it. There's a lot of other ways, but just an example. Kevin?
Lure.
Lure.
I don't even say it in my videos anymore. I say guide.
All right, so let's talk about socialization. Introducing our puppy to the world. Remember, socialization is providing your puppy with positive experiences in a variety of new environments. This is especially important for all puppies, but especially those that are going to go on to do higher level things like working dog work. Working dog work.
Put on a shirt.
Socialization is an ongoing process throughout the life of the dog. It is happening all the time, so you have to be aware of your dog's experiences, right? Functional socialization is not necessarily giving direct contact with people, places, or things. It is having positive experiences in close proximity to new people, places, and things. It's having a positive experience in proximity, right? So you don't have to have direct contact. It is common for your young puppy to be socialized, right? You're doing this as they're young, and then you're going to stop as the dog gets older. And guess what? That older dog starts to have issues because the socialization stops. Don't let that happen to you. Make sure you maintain your level of socialization. You may be doing a lot with a puppy. It doesn't take that much to maintain it. A couple socialization sessions a month should be no problem, right? So before your puppy even comes home, we already talked about having a plan, but have a plan for your socialization strategy and pay attention to the environments you go to, right? Could be Lowe's, Home Depot, the park, etc., right? Guess what? A lot of bad behavior in your puppy or your dog is going to be rooted in insecurity. So overcoming insecurity and fear by giving the dog good experiences when they're younger or puppies is going to be your key to success, which is socialization, right? Avoid or work at things at a greater distance from things you can't control. So people that want to run up to you and pet your puppy, you can't control that, so you need to stay away from those types of people, right?
Can of pepper spray says I can control that.
Not recommended.
Let's keep it on. The second they start coming, no.
Yep. Unfamiliar dogs are going to run at you and your puppy with no off leash. You know, those are things you want to avoid because you can't control that necessarily, right? Neutral people, neutral dogs, they are your best friends in socialization. These are the people and dogs who don't really care about you and your dog. They don't really look for an interaction. They're just hanging out, doing their thing. These types of people and dogs are the best ones to be around with your puppy for socialization because it's building up the proper expectation in your puppy where you don't have to interact with everything going on around you, right? So seek out that neutral dog or people during this time period, right? Another thing you can seek out is a dog-appropriate older dog. This is one who is social but not overbearing on your puppy, right? So it's not going to be too much for the puppy. It's also not going to be too permissive and not allow the puppy to do certain things, but not in an excessive way. Like there's dogs out there that will correct puppies like overcorrection. Those aren't good dogs to be around. You know what I'm saying? But there's dogs out there that aren't going to overcorrect your puppy. They're going to correct them at a level that the puppy will understand. That's a good dog to be around. These are the kind of dogs that your family or friends probably have that you want to be around. Okay? So just use that judgment when you're going through your socialization period. Okay? The other thing you want to think about is incorporating engagement games in your socialization work. Make it a fun thing. Have your puppy pay attention to you in that new environment with different stuff going on around you. So like, let's say you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, for example, you're going to the outdoor, what do you call it? Outdoor garden center.
Lawn and garden, yeah.
Yep. Instead of letting your puppy just hang out, smell all the flowers, that kind of stuff, have them follow you, have them make eye contact with you, reward them for that. They make eye contact with you. Yes, they get to chase your hand, get a food reward, good to go. right? Keep your socialization sessions short and fun. And again, don't allow your dog to rehearse unwanted behaviors. So again, jumping on people that may be going on around you, right? That could be an unwanted behavior, okay? Does that kind of make sense about socialization? Anything else to add to that?
I mean, just like anything else, everything else we've talked about, take your time with it. Don't feel like you need to rush this process either. You know, you may not be going to the farmer's market where there's, 100 people walking around and a bunch of crazy dogs. You know, you're not going to do that on your first session. Take it nice and easy, work up to that kind of stuff.
And if you want a deeper dive, we have a podcast.
We do have a
on
podcast
socialization.
on socialization.
Bingo.
Good to go.
Talk just about that.
Yep. All right. So the next topic will be what we call the critical development period. And this is going to be from the time the puppy's born to about 4 to 6 months old. This is known as the critical development period. And it's called that because there is critical development of the puppy's brain during this time period. Habits are being created. Likes and dislikes are forming, so on and so forth, right? Behaviors that are not reinforced or behaviors that are not rehearsed or practiced in the critical development period typically do not become a habit, right? So socialization is critical during this time. Expose the dog to everything you want them to be able to perform around. But again, you need to do that systematically. Like Chris already said, we have a podcast on that. But again, slowly increase the level of things that you're around, right? Like let's say you have a dog that you want to do protection work with. It needs to be good around, like let's say you want to do like a protection sport with it. It needs to be good around gunshots. That's not going to be your first session.
Yeah, let's go to the range.
That'd be like one of the later sessions in your critical development period that you're exposing to gunfire, okay? But if the puppy is not exposed to new people, places, and things, it can be extremely hard to get them used to them later in life. So make sure 0 to 6 months of age, you're knocking this stuff out as best you can, as much as you can, right? And then we're going to use the critical development period to expose and teach the dog to activities we want to perform with them later in life. So that could be, like we talked about, protection sport. You may expose them to some of that stuff in a systematic way. Let's say you want to do scent work with your puppy. You're going to expose them to the things you need them to detect. You know, there's a lot of sports out there that are doing scent work in a sport type fashion. And they use certain smells, certain materials that you have to indicate on. You're going to go ahead and expose your puppy to that during the critical development period, right? You're going to expose your puppy to a wide variety of sight, smell, people, places, things. Maybe you just have a pet dog. You want to take them to the beach. Systematically socialize them to the beach, especially important during the critical development period, right? Never forget, socialization never ends. But the most important changes and lifetime habits are created and developed during the critical development period. Good to go?
I know one of the concerns that people have with socialization, because a lot of vets will tell you too, just to lay off of socialization until your puppy has all their vaccinations and whatnot.
You're losing a lot of time if you wait.
Exactly. And I think it was it one of the Bruce Fogel books that he says,
Dog's Mind.
You know, when you look at it, you know, but the medical concerns versus the behavioral concerns, it's well worth the risk of taking them out. And as long as you do it systematically, like we're talking about, you're gonna be fine.
And you don't have to take it to a place where there's a lot of other dogs. Right. You can take it to a place where there's a lot of people instead of dogs until you get those vaccinations done. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Kevin, good to go. All right, last topic we're going to be getting into before we wrap this sucker up. I know we've covered a lot of information today, but let's talk about, Chris brought up the vet. That's a good point. We need to talk about the vet. We need to talk about the groomer, right? We need to do some handling drills and familiarity. So again, critical development period, 0 to 6 months old. We need to prepare our puppy to being handled, restrained, those types of things that are going to happen in grooming and in vet visits, right? We may also want our puppy to be familiar with types of equipment that we may use later on in life, such as leashes, collars, harnesses, vests, muzzles. So think about a service dog. They may need a certain vest, a certain harness. Think about protection sport dog. They may need a muzzle. Police dog. They may need a muzzle, right? These types of things are critical. When we're handling and familiarizing our puppy to new equipment, many puppies are probably going to want to scratch it, bite it, etc. So we want to distract the puppy from doing this. We're primarily going to use food for that, so we'll lure the puppy around with food, play with them with food to make them more comfortable in the new environment or with the new equipment. And you can check out our YouTube channel. We got some videos on how to condition a dog to a muzzle, make a muzzle a good thing. We'll do some on some harnesses, how to make the harness a good thing, right? You need your puppy to be comfortable with their ears, mouth, teeth, tongue, toes, legs, tail, etc. being handled. So we do have some videos on our Facebook and YouTube that demonstrate that as well. But basically, let's just take a nail trim, for example. You're just going to get the puppy used to its paw being held. So you grab its paw. If it's calm for a second, you say, good, give it some food, right? Grab its paw, stick your thumb between its toes, say, good, give it some food. Excuse me. So you're going to be doing that systematically to help that puppy be more and more comfortable with these different handling drills, right? Anything you guys want to add to that? Do it systematically. Do it routinely, at least once a week, maybe more often, because by the time those vet visits come around and those grooming visits come around, it should be a piece of cake. Then if you can have more people incorporated that in that as well, family, friends, whoever's willing to help you out. Maybe you got a friend who's got a puppy, you help them with their puppy, they help you with your puppy. You know what I'm saying? That's going to pay off in the long run as well.
Well, you can make a game out of it too. Just like you do with the kennel.
Yeah.
You know? So make it all super positive, super fun. Use engagement to your advantage, you know?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that about wraps up our discussion on raising a puppy. Where do you go from here? Create a plan. Have a plan for where you're going to go from this point forward. What's your goal with your puppy? How are you going to accomplish it? What behaviors do you need to teach your puppy? How are you going to execute a socialization plan, right? If you continue to develop and challenge your dog and puppy mentally throughout its life, you're going to see great rewards from that. You know what I'm saying? What you do during that critical development period from 0 to 6 months of age is critical. You know what I'm saying?
That's why it's called critical development.
Yep.
It's going to pay off in the long run, right? And so for people out there wondering when they can get their puppy in training with us, they need to have all their vaccinations done. So that's going to be about 17 weeks of age. There's a lot of stuff going on between 0 to 17 weeks of age. Contact us, you know, make sure you're doing the right things. We'll come over and show you if you want us to and go from there, right?
All of this stuff that we've talked about is what we would do prior to you can do this in your home prior to coming to a training program.
Yeah, this is what we're gonna like. If you ask us to come over, like let's say you sign up with us for training at 17 weeks old, you ask us to come over, we're gonna go through this with you, but we'll just show you how to do it in your own home. You know, if you have questions on it. Okay. All right. Anything else? Closing comments? Anything like that?
Good to go.
All right, listeners, we appreciate your support. Appreciate you guys being with us. If you have any questions or comments yourselves, let us know in the comments on this video below. If you're watching it on YouTube, if you're on a podcasting platform, we appreciate your support. Please leave us a 5-star review. Let us know how we're doing. And until next time, we'll see y'all later. Get out there, work hard, play hard, and have fun with your dog. Out.
Was that a new sign off? I like that. I have to pee so bad.